Hello, glad you can join us for our week 20 video in our Through My Bible series here at St. John's. You had finished up 1 Samuel, moved into 2 Samuel, along with a few selected chapters of 1 Chronicles, some assorted Psalms, and also kept moving through the book of Acts. And in preparation for this past week's readings, I had asked you to think of how David shows himself in the chapters that you read to be a man after the Lord's own heart. We're certainly going to see David's sin coming up this coming week, but in the chapters that you read, you saw David honor King Saul as the anointed one of Israel, even after Saul is dead. And David doesn't have Saul's interference with him becoming king. David honors Saul and includes him in the psalm that he writes in lamenting Saul's death. Also, you see David not doing anything until he consults the Lord first. Even in some cases where it would seem to be the course of action is so obvious, he wouldn't even need to consult God. David takes the time to consult God. And 1 Samuel 30 is a great example of that, when David comes back to Ziklag along with his 600 men and finds that Ziklag has been pillaged. All their possessions, all of their women and children have been taken. The obvious course of action is to go, and the men are quite eager for David to do that. Some even talk about rebelling against David's leadership and stoning him, but David takes the time to consult God before he does things. And in that way, he shows himself to be a man after the Lord's own heart, putting first things first. Also, I'd asked you to think about in the book of Acts, where the Apostle Paul demonstrates his dual citizenship, how God used that dual citizenship of Paul, being a Jewish man but also being a Roman citizen, to the benefit of the Lord's kingdom. And while in Philippi and probably also in Ephesus, Paul was able to appeal to his citizenship to escape unjust punishment that would have kept him from spreading the gospel as God had called him to do. Even though the Philippi account is in the previous week's readings, you'll probably recall that Paul said, no, wait a second, I am a Roman citizen. He didn't always appeal to his citizenship. He didn't always make use of that, but where it served the gospel, he did. He did so again later on in chapter 22 when he is in Jerusalem and he is in the heart of the opposition's territory against him. The Jewish leaders have plotted against his life, but in appealing to his citizenship, Paul is able to get official Roman protection against his adversaries. Now, as you move on this week, you'll have the story of David and Bathsheba in 2 Samuel, but you'll also have the Psalms that David wrote in conjunction with that unfortunate incident. And as you read Psalms 32 and Psalms 32 and 51, and then connect that to the account in 2 Samuel of David and Bathsheba, ask yourself how the Psalms help fill in the blanks of the narrative as to what's going on in the David and Bathsheba story. Also, as you continue to see Paul in Jerusalem under lock and key, being guarded from the Jews, you'll have another opportunity to see Paul recount his conversion story. And as you read especially the conversion story that he gives to Agrippa and Festus, pick out some details of that conversion story that Paul gives in this later recounting that we don't have in Luke's first telling of that story in in Acts chapter 9. God's blessings to you on your readings this week, and we will see you next week.